Hi, my name's Louise, and these are some of my thoughts on the Meta Quest 3 because I'm really disappointed in it. Coming from a Quest 2 perspective and having watched all of the reviews before I pre-ordered this, I thought it would be amazing. I would be so happy and be able to use it in so many different ways in my life. But while it definitely is an upgrade from the Quest 2, it doesn't feel like it's all that it's cracked up to be. It doesn't match almost any of the things that I was promised it would be able to do. So to start off the pass-through, a lot of reviewers talked about how crystal clear it was, where in reality, it's like looking at your room, but it's gone through an oil painting filter. So you can see things, and it's a lot easier to navigate and a lot better than the Quest 2's pass-through was, but it's not crystal clear. It's not perfect. For me, it didn't feel like I was actually just still in reality and not wearing a headset. And I also think that a lot of the applications for mixed reality are things that don't apply to me. They aren't games I would play. And so if you're someone who's thinking about buying this headset and $500, $600, if that's actual money to you, I would encourage you to actually look up, okay, here are the offerings for mixed reality. Like if I'm paying this much money for an extra set of features, are they features I'm actually going to use? Because personally, I don't play a lot of iPhone type games, and so it's not helpful for me to be able to play Angry Birds, but it's more 3D, or tabletop games, but they look more like they're on an actual table. And I did find mixed reality on this to be impressive, but I found it to be impressive in the way that you try something out. Like I played Close Encounters, the demo game where aliens crash through your ceiling and then they hide around your room, and I thought it was cool, but cool in the way that I was excited to show it to relatives of mine over Thanksgiving, because if you're someone who's never played VR and you have no idea what VR is capable of, then this headset will blow your mind. But if you're someone like me, I've spent multiple years playing games in VR, this headset, while an improvement, did not absolutely wow me, and that is definitely what I was hoping for. When it comes to mixed reality, yeah, there just aren't that many offerings. If they were to release like a language learning, like let me do my Spanish conjugations in mixed reality, then I might feel differently, but just looking at the existing offerings, none of them are things that I would typically find myself going for. Another thing with mixed reality that I was really excited for was the ability to more effectively use things like Immersed, which is, if you aren't familiar with it, it's an application that allows you to essentially use your computer screen in VR and just have multiple monitors while still working on your computer, either by seeing the keyboard in real life or by seeing a virtual representation of your keyboard in VR. And I'm a professional photographer, and so I spend a lot of time just sorting photos and looking at, oh, this one versus this one. And I thought, oh, this work would be more fun if I could do it in VR. And I also am a college student, and so I was kind of hoping to take some of the pain out of writing all of the essays that I have to write by being able to write more of them in VR and just finding ways to make productivity tasks more fun. But unfortunately, while this headset is definitely clearer and easier to read than the Quest 2 was, because I tried to do some of those things with the Quest 2, but it just didn't have that crispness I was looking for, I still don't feel like it's good enough for it to feel perfect and for it to feel comfortable. And while this headset is also definitely so much lighter feeling than the Quest 2, weirdly it's technically heavier than the Quest 2, it also felt too much like I was wearing a headset for me to feel comfortable like spending 4 hours on this typing and feel like I would be able to leave feeling like a normal human being and not as though I'd spent 4 hours wearing a VR headset trying to do productivity work. So it just isn't where I need it to be in order to feel comfortable using it for productivity tasks. And for me, that was one of the things I was really looking forward to and really hoping and had seen people hype up, but it feels more like people are talking about it in the sense of, oh, this is something that can theoretically be done, instead of this is something that I use in my workflow every single day as like, not quite a replacement for my computer, but I honestly, like, I have a tablet, and sometimes when I don't want to use my computer, I'll do work on my tablet and it's fine and it's great. And I was hoping to be able to use this like a tablet or like an alternative to working on my computer, and that's just not the case. And once again, for over $600, I really, really wanted it to be the case. Another thing, in terms of graphics, I was hoping everything would look a lot better in this headset, and it definitely is clearer. But seeing as I don't personally play any of the games that got upgraded versions, so a lot of games, because this has more, it has the capacity and the ability to like run more graphics power. That's not the right way of explaining that. But basically games can look way better in this headset, but they will only look way better in this headset if the game developers go through and make it look better for this headset. So I personally don't play any games that have gotten that upgraded, this is what it will look like in the Quest 3 version. So for me, the games that I do play look exactly the same. There is little to no difference when I'm playing them. The one thing I do enjoy is having this headset feel a little less like a headset. It definitely is a lot more comfortable to wear than the Quest 2, and I felt like that gave me a little bit of an advantage when I was playing games, because I play a lot of games that are very twisty-turny, moving, very active, and so it was nice to not feel as encumbered by the weight of the Quest 2. But the games for me look the same, and the field of view, which I also was hoping that I'd be able to just simply see more in this headset. As you know, like when you're in VR, it does feel like you're somewhere else, but your field of vision isn't complete, and it seems a little bit better, but not necessarily to the point where I would even know that there was a difference if you didn't, you know, say to me, hey, you just spent $600 on this headset and you're looking for an improvement here. Can't you see how there's a teeny tiny little bit of an improvement? So yeah, I think that if you're someone who has a Quest 2 and you like a Quest 2 and you aren't someone who's like working out heavily in it every single day, I think for the money, you should probably keep your Quest 2. Like, I just cannot, in good conscience, especially if you're someone who would have to change your life in order to be able to save up for this headset, be able to recommend it as an upgrade. Because while it's an upgrade, it doesn't feel like a good enough of an upgrade to justify the price if you're someone who money is like real to you. Because so many of the people who play VR, this headset, in comparison to a lot of things, is very, very cheap. For me, it is not, and I know for a lot of you, it is not. So those are my thoughts. And the other thing I want to mention, just because it was something that I had a really hard time trying to find information about, is what color the orange actually is. When I initially saw that it was coming in colors, I was really excited because I thought that they'd be like affordable or just an option you could choose, not $50 extra to get it in a color. And I normally am a blue girly, like half of my life is blue, but the blue to me looked kind of like a default color and not as though one had spent $50 to get it in a specific color. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go with orange. And if you're wondering what color this orange actually is, it's not any of the colors that it seems like it was. Like, I looked at every single photo that showed the orange. I looked at every single video review where the headset was orange, and not a single one of those colors matched the color that this actually is. It's technically called blood orange. I personally, as someone who used to be deeply obsessed with paint samples, would not call this color blood orange. I think an accurate way of describing it is if blood orange and orange cream had a baby. Like, that's the closest to the color it is. I'm not disappointed. I think it's a really pretty color. It just was unnecessarily difficult to figure out what color it actually was. And I also don't really regret getting the color, which I thought I would, because I think it looks cool. And I think that if you're spending this much money on something, you want it to look cool and you want it to feel personal and like it's yours. I definitely feel like this headset is mine. And I keep on going back and forth as to whether or not I want to return it, because I like it. I like that it's better, but I also cannot quite justify in my head why I spent so much money on something that, while it's better and easy to play on, it doesn't actually allow me to do productivity tasks. It doesn't actually allow me to do many other things when that's what I want to use it for. And the other thing that I do think people have been using it for a lot is mixed reality, more in the sense of, oh, I'm gonna watch YouTube while I do my chores. And for a little bit I thought, okay, maybe I'll do that. But then I thought about just how silly I personally would feel walking around like this in communal spaces, because I live in like a house and I'm at college, and I just didn't want to constantly be in that spot of having to explain to people, oh, this is a VR headset. Yes, I can still see you. And I also think from a safety perspective, for me, if I were to be wearing this headset and accidentally walk into someone or slam my head into a wall, or if something were to go wrong, I would feel very responsible for it and kind of a little bit like an idiot for deciding to wear this headset for normal everyday things. And I think that it's important, if you're buying this headset, especially if that's something that you're excited about, for you to like realistically think through, am I in a place in my life, surrounded by people in my life, where I can wear this headset while doing chores, while doing normal things, without it becoming an issue, a point of contention, or making me like uncomfortable. And if you're someone who is fine with that, then I think that this headset could be a good purchase for that. But also $600 for the ability to watch a YouTube video while folding your clothes, which is also something that you can do using a phone or a tablet or your computer, even if the screen isn't that big. Like, I just can't, once again, I cannot justify it for the price. And the final thing that I wanted to touch on is just that because Meta has put so much work into advertising this headset, I was really hoping that they would have fixed some of their worlds and made VR better. And I just haven't really seen that. I went back to the Meta Horizons world, which is their virtual space. And I was hoping to see like a ton of events this month or a ton of opportunities to meet people in VR. Because one of the hard things about VR is that so often you're doing things alone. But they've at least, like, compared to Quest 1 and Quest 2, they've definitely gotten, when those first released, they've gotten better at creating an interface where you can make friends in VR and then play games simultaneously with your friends in VR. But they still haven't gotten it to the point where I feel like I can actually make friends in VR or connect with people in VR, especially without dealing with constant racist harassment. And so I think that if VR were to get to a point where I could, just pop into a world that was designed to meet with people, to talk with people, and then go play some games with them. And if it was fun and easy and not weird and uncomfortable, and like, especially like, it's gotten to the point where I'm like, maybe I should just make my avatar a white man, so that way I don't feel so constantly like degraded and harassed and never listened to in VR. Like whenever I'm talking about anything tech specific, or if someone's having a specific tech issue that I've had that exact issue and I know how to fix it and I explain it to them in VR and I look similar to how I look, that person will not listen to me whatsoever. And I know in so many ways that that's just a reflection of real society, but I also know that a lot of the people who pick up a headset and who are going into these spaces to try to make friends or make connections, because VR isn't as mainstream, also tend to be people who aren't necessarily the most used to normal social interactions or have that frame of reference for this is what's okay to say in these spaces and this is what is not. And so I was hoping that with this headset, Meta would create, I guess, a better infrastructure that supported more normal behavior, and also just more opportunities, more games, more events, more things that felt like attending a real event, as opposed to there just being like, oh, there are 4 events at some point during this month. But I feel like for me, as someone who spent years in VR, there are just so many capabilities for VR, for things like language learning and meeting up with people to practice target languages, for forming connections that feel just as real as online friendships, but you're able to actually have those connections in a place that feels like a 3D space and as though you're actually doing something. And I was hoping that with this headset, a lot of that would be improved and enhanced, and from what I've seen, it just really hasn't been. And also there are still, if you're someone who's hoping that this headset will get you back into playing VR, I hate to break it to you that there are still so many children everywhere, and I mean everywhere. I had never played Player One or whatever the Fortnite VR standalone game is. And my first time playing it, I was playing with, I think the child was about 6 years old. 6 years old, trying to figure out how to grab guns and shoot people. And it just, as a 21-year-old myself, it felt really weird and really uncomfortable, and I was very much like, your parents should not let you play this game. And it was pretty clear that the kid had spent hours and hours playing this game. And so I wish that VR would fix its children problem, do a little bit more on the racism and like, frankly, sexual harassment problem, so that I could feel more comfortable recommending VR as a space to people, even if it is just with the Quest 2, because with this headset coming out, Quest 2, which is a fantastic entry-level device for VR, is going to be so much more cheaper and so much more accessible, and it just makes me sad that I can't in good conscience tell other people to get VR headsets and say, oh, VR is an amazing, epic space to be in, or a good way to combat loneliness, or really anything other than just, my thing that I always say if people ask me, oh, should I buy a VR headset, is test it out, try one, and if there's a game that you really love, then it's probably worth it to get a headset. Would I say it's worth it to get this headset? No. And I really wanted to be able to say yes, but no. But if you really love a game in VR, then I think it's worth it to pick up a VR headset. If you don't, I think so often VR becomes just a cool gimmick or something that people buy and then it sits on your shelf. And I guess one really nice improvement on the Quest 3 over the Quest 2, despite the fact that it's nowhere near as improved as I wanted it to be, is that it does look really, really, really nice just sitting on a shelf. But yeah, literally, if this is a lot of money for you, I would say save your money, and maybe save your money to buy it, right? Maybe buy it in the spring, buy it when it makes more financial sense for you. But I don't think that you're missing out on as much as a lot of the reviewers have been making it sound like you're missing out on. Those are my thoughts. I never make tech videos. If you want to see more from me about tech or about honestly anything, let me know. And also if you have any questions about this headset, since I do have it and can test different things, and if I decide to return it, it won't be for probably another 8 to 10 days, feel free to leave a comment below, and I hope you have a fantastic day.